Good evening. After a tricky start, it was all right in the end. I'm not talking about Manchester City. I am, in fact, talking about ourselves. We got there. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, and I've joined by my very good friend,
Adam! Hey Rory, how are you this evening? As ever, we tried to be as smooth as ice, but we were probably the opposite there. But never mind. How was your weekend,
we're here
more
now.
importantly? Yeah.
It was a complete disaster on the football pitch, I'll be honest, and Saturday afternoon was pretty grim viewing, but it's been terrible weather in Milan recently, but yesterday was beautiful, so feeling a bit of new energy. I kind of feel like the end of the season has snuck up on me. Have you
Yes.
have you
Yeah.
realized yet that we've got like one game left? And I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to like do shit on my weekend soon. Like,
Yeah, no, I've noticed this because Wycombe Wanderers obviously finished their season a
mhm.
bit earlier this time, so starting to find these weekends are freeing themselves up suddenly, and yeah, I'm getting that distinct feeling of, oh, it's on the horizon. What do we do now? What?
Yeah.
There's no World Cups, there's no Euros.
Yeah,
What do we do?
it's been
Like,
so long that we've not had any with a period of no football that I'm not sure how I'm actually going to cope. I found myself googling which leagues run over the summer, and I'm like, okay, there's the Allsvenskan in Sweden.
yeah,
I can
yeah.
watch a bit of like Elite Serie A in Norway. Like maybe I'll have to try and find something. I'm going to have to get my fix somewhere. But guys, welcome to the show. Adam, yes, how's your weekend as well? By the way.
It was very good, thank you. We were reminiscing offline about how beautiful the weather was. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely took in some sights as we went along. But yeah, more of a chilled out weekend. But
Nice.
Rory, lots of football to talk about. And as we're talking right now, the news came through, it trickled through. We kind of hinted about this on Friday, but Juventus have been docked points. So incredible, right? Just incredible. And yeah, just to see Juventus now go into seventh place. And as we speak, even now, Rory, Empoli are beating Juventus 2-0 in the league, which is
Oof.
incredible. Let's hope it continues. And as you spoke to me as well, Massimo Allegri is confirmed for the next season as well. So Juventus fans must be rejoicing right now as we speak.
It is a rough night to be a Gebre this evening. A very, very rough night. Well, it never rains, it pours, does it? It never rains.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find time to talk about that and how it affects Arsenal because I have had an eye on how it will affect Arsenal. We will get there. But two stories that caught our eye this weekend before we kick off the main show. One, I'll start with the nice one and then we'll go to the funny one. I think we'll start with the heartwarming one.
Yes.
Hero of the game, legend of Calcio and Serie A, Domenico Criscito is finally retiring. Is retiring this weekend. An incredible career. He made 541 career appearances, 52 goals from a defender, and 42 assists. Of course, 99% of them were penalties, and he did get a penalty in his last game of his career in front of the Genovese against Bari, unfortunately, in a game that had everything. Khedira, our boy, scored an
Yeah.
absolute banger, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. Genoa ran out 4-3 winners. Criscito getting the winner. And in front of the Genovese, he did end his speech saying, "Dear football, I love you. Dear Genoa, I love you." And I just wanted to give a second for a shout out for this absolute legend of Serie A and someone who stuck with Genoa when they went down purely just so that he could get them back in Serie A. It's a beautiful story, right? And he's managed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is beautiful, especially when you remember the backdrop, which was obviously in that January transfer window, was brought in just more of an emergency measure at the time. Just done it for the love of the club. And yeah, just to see him complete this magnificent kind of hallmark or, just milestone, I suppose. Just credit to the guy. And yeah, I'm sure Genoa would love to keep him for one more season, but yeah,
Just
let's
one
see
more.
how it goes on. One more season. Go on. You can do it
One
for
more.
one
Come on,
more season
Domenico.
in Serie A. Come on.
I was kind of looking into his career a little bit. I didn't realize he was in Russia with Spalletti, and he
Yeah,
won
he
the
was. Yeah.
Russian
Zenit.
Premier League with Zenit. He won everything in Russia. To be
Yeah.
fair, I was looking him up. I was just doing a bit of research. I was like, damn, I forgot about that. So yeah, nice, decent little career there for Domenico. But going up to Serie A and the most on-brand thing in the world. It was seen on Twitter this week in a Mourinho press conference. He kind of flashed his phone screen to a journalist. And of course, his wallpaper was an illustration of himself as the Emperor of Rome on a throne holding the Conference League with the Champions League and the Europa League behind him. It might be the most on-brand Mourinho thing I've ever seen, but it instantly made me love it more. How much do you love this story? It's just incredible, right?
It is beautiful. It's typical Mourinho as well, isn't it? Just to drum up a bit of just interest into him, if anything. But just love how he seems to spin it and take the attention of his team by just doing some stupid shit like this. It's just classic Mourinho. I kind of miss that side now in the Premier League. Like, it is weird to say because the football wasn't the most enticing as Roman fans have had to endure this season, but look, he's making something of a legacy at Rome as well. So it
feels like he's enjoying himself again.
Yeah,
it feels like he's enjoying himself, and he he doesn't look like he's sleeping in his car, Mourinho, anymore. And usually, like when he was at United and Chelsea and Spurs, he looked like he was sleeping in his car. At a certain point, he's starting to look like he's having fun again. But this show, as you said, Adam, absolutely packed this week. We do need to talk about, in the Premier League, we're going to talk about Man City doing the three-peat. The dream is officially dead. We're going to talk about Nottingham Forest with an incredible win to secure their safety in the Premier League. We're going to talk about all the action down at the bottom. West Ham with no hangover. We got the question to our Declan Rice hangover. We got the answer even to our Declan Rice hangover question. And we're going to talk about just how bad Leeds are. I'm going to see what we think the relegation picture looks like. Adam, what are we going to be talking about in Serie A?
So in Serie A, we had the big game that was Lecce versus Spezia. Unfortunately, Rory, it wasn't to your sadistic wantings anyway. There was no goals. There was no sending offs really in this match.
Nothing.
But yeah, nothing to write about. So we'll talk more importantly, a bit similar to the Premier League, about that relegation battle, what that actually means. But also we'll talk about the top of the table, Rory, because in light of that Juventus kind of docking points, I think it mixes it up now, because I think what we probably had pre-scripted has probably been screwed up now, and we have to rethink about it on the spot now and have a look at these positionings, because it actually puts Milan in a more favourable position than they were previously. Same with the likes of Lazio, for example. Obviously, Lazio got an important win against Udinese. We'll talk about Ciro and what a record he's created for himself as well. But more importantly, I suppose, Inter versus Napoli, what a close match that was, because despite the scoreline, it was ruined by one player that I know Uncle Sharma cannot wait to see the backside of. So yeah,
there are Twitter accounts counting down the days. There are Twitter accounts
counting the days. But yes,
nice.
We'll talk about this
that's great. And of course, we are going to be talking about Spalletti versus De Laurentiis as well, which is the big story around Napoli. Is it all falling apart already? But guys, we are going to go for a very quick break, and we will come back with some Premier League action. And welcome to the Premier League section. There's a weird stutter there, I'm not sure why. And to start with, we are going to start at the top of the table, and we're going to start with Man City getting a routine 1-0 win against Chelsea with a heavily rotated team. I'm going to say that this might be the strongest bench fielded in Premier League history. If I take you through the Man City bench here, it was Stones, Haaland, Rodri, KDB, Ederson, Diaz, Gundogan, Silva, and Grealish all on the bench. Those 9 players would have beaten Chelsea's 11 on the pitch. I think strongest bench ever seen. I think. But Adam, how comfortable was this for City? And I hate to say it, but they deserve it, right? They completely deserve the league title.
Yeah. I think we'll talk about the season another time, but just to talk about this particular match. I think there's a contrast between the stars of these two teams. So obviously you've got Man City that have been able to put this second-sided team, let's put it that way, still strong enough to compete. It's, I think if you put that team in the Premier League, they'd probably be at least sort of top half of the league, I would imagine. And then you've got the contrast of Chelsea, who've probably spent more than Man City this season, have no clue. They've got a manager that's very clueless. Style just doesn't make any sense. Every time Chelsea got the ball forward, then they played it back. Just even Asper and the likes of Asper Lager, they didn't know what to do with the ball half the time because there was no one up top. There was no one to kind of get it into the channels. They just really lacked any kind of ideas. And Rory, I've got this fascinating stat to you and obviously our listeners and viewers. Chelsea have lost 6 consecutive games against Man City without scoring a single goal for the first time in the club's history. So they've conceded 10 goals in those 6 matches, not scoring one single goal. Rory, that is painful. And yeah, that's over a number of different managers.
It makes me feel better about Arsenal's record, I'll be honest. It makes me feel better about Arsenal's record, definitely.
But yeah, it is painful at the moment. But yeah, kudos to Man City. Strong end to this season. And I think obviously a lot of people were making out that it's all down to John Stones and that transformation of him playing more in that kind of central midfield role, also kind of giving those kind of pivots, being able to kind of draw people in when they least expect it, but also allowing him to be the kind of cover duty as well at centre back. So yeah, I mean, that just goes to show, because I think they showed the record since the change of formation, they haven't lost a game. And that was prior to January. So, I mean, just to see players like Jack Grealish bomb on this season, it's been incredible. I don't know where we start with this Man City side, but you've seen it as well. I mean, it's just, how do you compete? And I'm sure that's the second debate, isn't it? How do you compete with a team that is supposedly cheated away with finances?
Well, what sums it up for me is that Calvin Phillips made his first start of the season yesterday.
Yeah.
They spent 50 million on him. And like, I know that I've seen a lot of City fans like kind of piping up about, you know, they do have youth products that are coming through, and Akanji was a steal. Like, they didn't spend a lot of money on Akanji. They are very wily in the transfer business. In the transfer market, they are very good. They don't make bad signings, right? And that is brilliant. That is down to the scouting and this perfect infrastructure that is formed around this club where everything is perfect. The problem is, the reason why everything is able to be perfect is because you can just leave a £50 million player on the bench and it doesn't matter. You can just wait. Like, no other club can do that. Like, when Arsenal bought Pepe, and it was quite clear that Pepe wasn't the player we wanted or needed or expected, we had to just stick with him for 3 years until we figured out how can we get past him. And it was a youth player that replaced him in the end. Like, we couldn't we still haven't replaced him. It's like City have that ability to just be like, oh no, we'll just get that now. We'll sit on that. We'll wait. We'll get them into the system, coach them through. And it's like, it's just, I saw someone, it was a United fan, but I saw them sum it up really well. They said when Ben Johnson got caught doping, he wasn't the drugs made him able to train that much harder, that he could run that much quicker to win the game, to win the thing, right? The steroids didn't make him run quicker. They allowed him to train more. That's what the money does for City. It doesn't allow them to, it doesn't make them win, but it makes everything around them, the environment around them, formed. That means their potential is so much higher than everybody else is. And I don't think they get caught until Guardiola goes. I don't think they get caught. And I think they could honestly have the league wrapped up next season by February. Yeah. And I think we're at a point now where competitiveness is starting to become a bit of an issue, because I know United did it twice, right, where they went 3 back-to-back twice, but it never felt like there was that absolute huge gulf in class, and it never felt like it didn't feel as uneven. I don't know how you remember those days, but it didn't feel as like completely one-sided and completely like skew with in their favor. Like, do you think it feels different with City now?
It does feel a bit different, and I think it's the caliber of players that they've been able to bring into that squad. Because if you think about it, if they were to be sanctions, let's say they're not allowed to buy players for the next, say, 2 seasons, so a bit like Chelsea had to do. Yeah, I think you could comfortably say they could cope with that players that they've got in their squad and not worry about it. They wouldn't have to worry about it at all. And, you know, they've got players like Haaland, for example, that can stay there for at least 5 to 6 years and win everything for them. They would not need to worry about anything unless they have drastically like a massive injury, like issue basically
KDB goes out or something.
Yeah, something like that. Then I really don't know where you can kind of look at the weaknesses in this squad, because they've got sufficient backups. I mean, yes, they've got some really good youngsters coming through, but that just, like, I suppose, heightens what potentially could be a really good squad as well going forward as well, because we've seen the likes of Price, for example, coming into this squad as well. There's loads of players, Delap as well. Palmer's another one.
Palmer looks very good.
Very
Lewis
good,
has had a great season.
Yeah. So there's a number of them right now. So you think also the players that are coming back from loan spells as well. So Stefan Stam, for example, I know some Man City fans aren't as keen on him as being a backup goalkeeper, but still, you're talking about some solid players still coming back from loan spells as well. So yeah, and scary.
It's to be applauded to a certain degree as well. Like it's an organization run to perfection, and everything is perfect about it. So you have to stand there and just go, yeah, fair play, like absolutely fair play. And I think, like, obviously the Arsenal fan in me now I know that it's Arsenal's fault that we are where we are. It's not City's fault. Like, we've fucked it completely. But we always knew, and I said it from the first day of the season, if this is going to happen, we need to be absolutely perfect, because they are. And if we're not absolutely perfect, there's no way we do this, because everything they do is perfect. And I think it's the best Man City team we've ever seen. I think they are going to go on and do the treble. I can't see anybody. Like, I know we've talked about Inter maybe having a chance of an upset, but with a sober head on, you go, well, who beats this City side, really? And the team that's come closest to them this season got spanked 8-2 on aggregate over 2 games. And we're the only team that's, if it wasn't for Arsenal, this league would have been done by January, maybe even earlier. And there was still that golfing class between us and them. So I think it's just, you have to just hold your hands up and say absolutely fair play. Grealish has been incredible. Gundogan always does this at the end of the season, just suddenly appears and just starts banging goals. John Stones has had the career of his life, and this new role, I think, has made him like 5 times the player he was, and he already was one of the best centre-backs in the league. Like, I just think the coaching that Pep, he's just obviously an absolute genius, and you just have to sit back and appreciate it, really, without, and for a second, not looking at everything else, but just admiring it and going, yeah, absolutely fair play. It is the peak of sporting performance that we're seeing there. But if I hear one more person tell me that Haaland only cost 50 million, I'm going to put my fist through my fucking phone, because how naive are you? He did not cost you 50 million. Take 1 second to look at the contract and the bonuses and the stories around it. He did not cost 50 million pounds. Anyway, it cost nearly double, 3 times it, I guess. But congratulations, City. Genuinely, I don't want to sound like matey from Come Dine With Me again. Congratulations, City. Really an incredible title win. The last couple of weeks, if they've taught me anything, is that it's completely Arsenal's fault. So I think it's probably time to talk about Arsenal, unfortunately. Do we need to talk about Chelsea? Not really, do we?
Not really. Just depressing, isn't it? And hopefully we'll get Pochettino in there. But let's not worry. Let's not dwell. There's more stories that we can talk about. So let's move on.
So sorry, Chelsea. Forest, the tricky trees. Forest are safe. Their fans were singing 30 signings. Who gives a fuck? The Forest are staying up, which I did enjoy. Oh my god, the atmosphere at the City Ground! I'm sorry. Every time I've seen that stadium on telly, I'm like, yeah, this place kicks off straight away. I think within 4 minutes of the kickoff, I tweeted, "This is going to be a long 90 minutes," and it was a long 90 minutes, a very, very long 90 minutes. But before I talk about Arsenal, I want to give Forest their absolute plaudits and Steve Cooper. Some players that stood out to me. Now, obviously, with those 30 signings, it's been very difficult to keep up with the Forest squad and who is in there. Now, Niakate, I've never heard of him. He is fucking huge, and he absolutely bossed us for 90 minutes. I could not believe it. I honestly felt like I'd never seen him before in my life. He was unbelievable. The two, like the partnership of Danilo and Gibbs White on the transition were absolutely killing us. We could not get near him. I was really impressed with Danilo. And watching that, I could see why Arsenal were linked with him in the summer, and I think we were kind of tempted to go for him, but in the end, I think we went for someone else. But yeah, unbelievable player, him. And then Awoniyi, the key man at the end of the season, 5 goals in his last 3 games. A striker that's not really a striker, he always looks like he can't really play football, but he's been absolutely crucial. a bit of a fortunate finish here, as Gabriel gave him a bit of a helping hand, but he did make it 1-0 on the break. Arsenal never got close. Is this the message to all the Premier League teams to not panic and stick with your manager? Because Forest have been massively rewarded for sticking with Steve Cooper.
I think so, to an extent. I think you've got to have the right footballing philosophy, and you've got to have the right kind of attitudes in terms of how you're going to go about your business, right? So I think there's plenty of times during this season where it would have been easy for chairman to have sacked that manager. For example, Steve Cooper in particular kind of reminisced about the early stages of the season where obviously they brought in a lot of players off the back of the coming up through the playoffs. And then, yeah, I think there was that difficulty of like adapting to the league, one part, but the second part was that they were trying to have a certain style of football, but it never really came to fruition. So there's a combination of they had to realize that they had to battle in certain games and utilize certain players for certain matches as well. So I think now they've come to that point at this point in the season where they've started to understand which players actually work best and give them probably the best harmony, I suppose is the right word, because I think sometimes you need players that aren't necessarily maybe the most technical or the most flashiest or audacious players, but you need someone that's going to actually work hard for the team, get the ball and release it to those players that are a bit more kind of wizardry or more technical, like you or Morgan Gibbs-White, for example, Brennan Johnson, for example. And the fact that he's had that kind of amount of players is probably works in their favor as well, because it's allowed them to rotate the team a lot more. So I think if you compare it to some teams that naturally come up, they'll have a base of at least 18 players, right? But thereafter, they kind of do struggle. The quality in depth does kind of drop off a bit. So I think they've been luckily kind of, maybe they sort of geared themselves up for that. They knew there was going to be that golfing class. The fact that they brought in the likes of Navas as well in the January transfer window was a massive coup at the time. Considering you had Dean Henderson as well, like there's nothing.
We were laughing at the time. We were like, "Do they know you can only play one goalkeeper?"
Exactly.
But he was incredible again.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they've managed to pull off these incredible signings. Like we know about Frela as well at Atalanta. He's not had a great start. He's not had a great start to his career there. But I mean, the fact that they were able to poach these kind of players was testament to the recruitment. And I appreciate the recruitment's been scrutinized at Forest, but actually fair play to Steve Cooper to get the best out of these style of players as well at the end of the day. So I'm sure in the summer, they've actually got now a solid break where they can evaluate who they're going to keep, who they're going to want to bring in.
It's going to be a long day.
There's going to be a lot of movement. Yeah, exactly. But then there's been these rumors about whether Steve Cooper wants to still be there. Now, by all accounts, looking at the celebrations, I think he wants to stay there. I think he's going to be there for the long haul. So, and the chairman seems to speak him up as well. I don't know if you saw the interview after the match, but yeah, he was pretty confident. He knew what he was doing, and he's probably been used to batshit crazy stuff at Olympiacos himself. So we know about his guns at half time and stuff like that. So we never saw that at the City Ground. But Rory, we have to also talk about the performance and say what the hell were Arsenal playing at and what was Arteta playing at, because that was Kivor at left back, Partey at right back. I mean, what was the thinking going on? And I think you brought out the perfect meme. It was the Barclays card advert, which was basically some over 50s playing walking football, which it was basically. I mean, there was more intensity in a over 50s game than there was in this, to be fair.
It was brutal. Dreadful. It was brutal. From the second the lineup was announced, I was like, what the hell is Arteta doing? I was like, and Arsenal Twitter was just people trying to figure out what the frig the formation was. It's like, well, he can't be playing Partey at right back. He must be playing Xhaka left back, and then that kind of makes sense. And then okay, fuck, I don't know what. At a ground that we haven't won our last 3 visits there, we've been knocked out of the FA Cup twice, and we've lost there now this time. I don't know why you would decide this is the game to take a risk against a team that are fighting for their lives, right? We knew Forest weren't just going to turn up and be like, oh yeah, we're a shite side. They were going to give us a game. I don't get why you choose this game to be like, let's go all avant-garde and try something we've never done before. I don't understand. Oh, God, it was just from the first whistle, I was like, yeah, we're losing this. This is never going to fucking happen. I thought There was so much wrong with it. Thomas Partey, I cannot say it anymore how little I want him in the team. And it's not just his performances, but his performances don't fucking help either. Like, the guy's been absolutely atrocious since came back from the World Cup, really. The guy's been fucking dog shit at right back. And we kept insisting on putting every attack down the right. I just, at one point, I tweeted, do we want to just try and go down the left? Do we want to just give it a go? Like,
give it a go.
Just see if it works. And then we got down the left and we actually got a ball across. Trossard was a bit tricky. We got a ball across. And I was like, okay, right. So, oh no, we're going back to the right again, back to the right again, back to the right again. And what Arteta did, one of the biggest strengths of our team this season has been Saka and White's partnership, right? Saka and White have been absolutely vibing off each other. White's been one of the best right backs in the league. I still think he should have been ahead of Trippier in team of the season. Like, he's been unbelievable. But Arteta broke that up to try this new thing with Partey. It obviously didn't work. Ben White still was our best player on the pitch because no matter where you put him, he's going to be your best player on the pitch. I cannot speak highly enough of the bloke. He's just fucking amazing. But he was the best player in the pitch when everyone else was dog shit. I think Saka, he's played 70-odd games now in a row for Arsenal. We need to rest him. What'll happen is what happened to Wilshere, and we'll just run him into the fucking ground and he'll be dead by 25. Like, we need cover for him because, again, for him, since the international break, he's been dead. There's just nothing left in him. And I completely get it. The guy's played football for 2 years straight. Like, the guy is tired. I think Xhaka, it was really bad timing for this story to come out that he's leaving. We could have just waited till the end of the season. Like, he did not have a great performance. Him and Jorginho in the midfield together is not a good thing. I think Jesus, I would have him as a winger, as a number 10. I don't think he's a striker. He doesn't have that physical presence. He's not able. We need another option up front. And Nketiah is just a worse version of Jesus. So when the game's not going our way, we're not able to change it. Against Joe Worrell and the defenders that they had, who all had incredible games, by the way, we needed a physical presence that was going to disrupt him, not someone who's going to fall down every time they get within a foot of him, which is what Jesus did. But that being said, we should have had a penalty. I do not know how that wasn't a penalty. That's a Stonewall penalty. I don't get why it's not given, but fine. But we didn't deserve anything from the game. It was a disgusting performance. And the whole thing, I don't know, there's so much. I don't know what Emil Smith-Rowe has done to piss off Arteta. Like, Vieira looks like he's 8 stone wet, gets pushed over every time the ball goes near him. Smith-Rowe cannot get in ahead of him. Like, it feels like Arteta's kind of lost it towards the end of the season. I still love him. Obviously, this season's been incredible, mostly down to him. I just think towards the end of the season, he's completely lost it and panicked. How does it look to you? Because it was a weird team selection.
It was very weird, and I don't know what the thinking was, if that makes sense, because even the players didn't look comfortable in what they were doing. So it's not like something that they practice in the training ground and gone, this might kind of ruffle their feathers, might play into our hands. It was just weird, completely just strange. And like you say, the performance was lackluster. There was just no enthusiasm, it felt like, as well. I think the players are just burnt out, it felt. Like, I don't know, when you get to that point of the season where you've just had, like, you've been playing football constantly the same way, just like you say, just needed a different approach. But this wasn't that approach. It wasn't the way they should have played. They should have played it nice and safe, played to their strengths, but it didn't. For some reason, like, Arteta had this kind of, and I was kind of thinking this as he was speaking about this. This feels like when Pep overthinks things, and like that final that he did against Chelsea, where he had certain players left out. This felt like one of those occasions where Arteta has just overthought it and tried to be too clever, and actually, got himself undone. And like you say, actually, for a number of weeks, Arteta's got it badly wrong. He's done the calls really badly wrong. Like, we've been calling out, Kivor should have been brought into the team a lot sooner. Jorginho replacing Partey should have been brought in a lot sooner. And I appreciate there's some positives and negatives, when it comes to those type of players being brought in. But he needed to rotate the players. And Saka's a good example of that, where actually could he have benefited from just a rest in 1 or 2 of those games prior to the build-up? Like, I'm sure there could have been some leeway there. And like you say, Emil Smith-Rowe, don't know what he's done. But again,
Yeah.
doesn't feel promising for his career at the moment at Arsenal because he can't get into the squad. So
I would be absolutely gutted if we let him go. Honestly, I'd be absolutely gutted. He's such a pleasure to watch. He's such a promising player. He's absolutely like 100% Arsenal. If we let him go, we are fucking idiots. Like there was also rumors that Arteta's trying to train him as a number 8, so kind of put him into Granit Xhaka's position, and this is why he's not getting much game time at the minute. But I also think when there's nothing really on the line in games,
might as well play him.
Why not just chuck him on for the last 20 minutes of a game where we're losing? Like, just see if he can do it. And the amount of times Smith Rowe in his career has come off the bench and scored for Arsenal is a bit mad. Like, so I don't know. I'm hoping it's because there's some tactical shift and not because he's about to sell him, because I think it would be a huge mistake when we're looking for creativity in midfield. That's what we're trying to get this summer. We've got one right there. So I don't know. It was a really, really frustrating afternoon. I was really pissed off. But it was so blatantly obvious it was going to happen. We've not won there in fucking ages. And I think even when Forest got promoted, I was like, well, there's an away loss next year, because it's just typical fucking Arsenal. But again, congratulations, Forest. Unbelievable season. Like, for them to be able to stay up with a game left to go, I think it's like a nice little, they can have the party, they can have the celebration. A great addition to the Premier League, proper Premier League club, history, etc. Good on him. Absolutely love it. Gibbs White, all of it. Brennan Johnson, really, really enjoying a lot of the players down there. So, and I really did want to give another shout out for Joe Worrell, because I thought he was unbelievable. But staying up towards the top of the table, I wanted to very quickly talk about a huge story. And we need first, I almost forgot, I need to take this away, and we need to take a little trip down memory lane for some quotes from a certain pundit. Here we go.
I think it's a risk. You're bringing someone in who doesn't know our game because of modern technology. You can Google. He said he was impressed with his knowledge of Brighton and what they've done and the way they attempt to play. Well, they could have got that off Google, most of it.
But it's his business to know the game here, isn't it?
So
they all do, Graham.
Listen, he's going for an interview, so he spends a couple of hours on the internet getting as much information as he possibly can. So that's not the work of a genius. I think it's a risk. I have to say, I think it's a risk bringing someone with his CV, the 7 jobs in 9 years. If you're an outstanding coach, then people want to hold on to you. It's a bit like being a player. If you're a player that had 15 clubs, 12 clubs, that's telling a lot about you. It's saying that people, if they want to keep you, they'll keep you because you're a really good player, a really good type round the place. You get someone. It's like when you spend a lot of money on a football player. Ideally, you want someone who's played in your league, scored goals in your league, been consistently very good in your league, no surprises, injury-free. Doesn't know the players, and the question I asked about what football people are going to be at the club to help him, and he will need help. I think that's very important. That's a big risk.
Well, a real meeting of minds there, as Graham Souness, we all know who he's talking about. He is, of course, talking about Roberto De Zerbi, the idolo of this podcast. How dare you, Graham? How dare you? We knew he was going to smash it up. Well, Brighton have now qualified for Europe in the first time in their history. We don't know which form of Europe it's going to be yet, but they will be in Europe. They got a comfortable 3-1 win over Southampton. Evan Ferguson, my guy, getting 2 goals, the great hope of Irish football. Nothing better happened to him, I swear. 2 beautiful finishes from him. Incredible season from Brighton, and just how much humble pie do TalkSport have to try not to eat now?
Oh, massive amounts. So it's going to be a massive pie parks outside of TalkSport headquarters, and I'm sure the likes of Jamie O'Hara will enjoy eating it tonight. But to be fair, I mean, De Zerbi has actually proved a lot of doubters wrong as well in the process. I think there's a lot of people, not just in the UK, but also back at home in Italy, probably weren't too sure about his choice of club here, thinking potentially the worst, that this might not go his way. But I've heard an interesting interview with Paul Barber today, actually, on a podcast by our very good friend Jake Humphreys, as you can imagine. But
Oh,
what I
big
loved
weekend
about
for
it
Jake
was,
as well. This,
I
Yeah.
know. We've got a few things in our WhatsApp group about him. But the most important bit that I got was the actual meeting with De Zerbi and how his kind of nature came across to Paul Barber, who's the CEO of Brighton, because he said, unlike Graham Potter, who was a bit more methodical, talking about what can the club do for him, he was talking about what he could do for the club and how he could progress it. And an interesting bit was also a conversation that Paul Barber had with Jason Steele, who's the current, obviously, Brighton goalkeeper. And he said there was a certain match that they played this season. I think it was Stoke City that he reminisced in the cup game. And he said De Zerbi told Jason and the rest of the guys how it would be played out. And he specifically talks about one moment about how they were going to score a goal. Because the way he kind of works it out, he's almost like a chess kind of player.
Okay.
When you think about one move, then he thinks like 3 or 4 moves ahead. So therefore he goes, apparently this conversation happened between Paul Barber and Jason Steele, which was, he said, you're going to play it like this, but Stoke City are going to do this. So therefore you've got to do X, then Y, and then Z, and then goal will score. And he said that actually happened. It freaked him out. And he said it was a bit like poetry. It's like it was just motion happening in front of him. But it was everything that they practiced on the training ground. It was to that letter, everything that he said would happen actually played out. And it was just fascinating to kind of have that kind of in-depth knowledge. And just to think, right, that is the level of like a Pep Guardiola, isn't it? That is what we're talking about with De Zerbi. He's methodical, he's meticulous. He kind of instills a lot of confidence in the players as well. You can see that on the way they're playing. Matoma, for example, Solly March. We talked about how great those two have played this season. And just to see it kind of unfold in terms of their performance, and now they're in Europe, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. So many plaudits for De Zerbi. I hope it continues. And just the fact that he's being able to also embrace those younger players like your Evan Fergusons, your Bonettis now, for example, coming into this squad, filling in for the duties of that first 11 and just showing how it's done. I mean, Evan Ferguson now looks like an assured player that can definitely play for any of the top 6, the way he's performing, especially on that performance against Southampton. I mean, I know the first one, you could maybe say Alex McCarthy in the Southampton goal should do better, but that finish was just incredible, and so was the second.
Yeah, the way he's just a nuisance every time. Like I feel like, I feel like he's a striker that Alex Ferguson would have loved. Evan Ferguson.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have been picked up by United straight away.
him.
I just feel like he's that kind of slightly old school striker, instinctive finisher, puts himself about. I think he's genuinely, there's a lot in that lad. He's so exciting. But I think the players really, really love De Zerbi. I think you can tell that they're really enjoying him. They're enjoying themselves. They're enjoying this ride and where the hell it's going to go. Like, they were very, very close to being in an FA Cup final. Like, he's taken them to new levels. And yeah, it's been said before, but Graham Potter had them kind of here and De Zerbi's pushed them way up here. Like, it's just, it feels like they've gone just so beyond expectations. And we know that whoever they sell this summer, because it looks like McAllister's going to Liverpool and Caicedo might go to Arsenal and whatever, like there might be a bit of a fire sale. But Brighton fans don't even have to panic because they're just like, oh, we've got like 5 in the garage just waiting to come out. Like, we'll be fine. Like, so it's just crazy what's going on there. I'm just super happy for the Brighton fans. I cannot wait to see them, hopefully in the Europa League. But either is fine. Like, their fans are going to love it no matter what. Seeing Brighton in a European competition is just going to be fantastic. So, yeah, congratulations, Brighton. Unbelievable. And De Zerbi, he's getting linked. As I said before, he's getting linked with every single Italian job in this country. Like AC Milan are getting linked to him on a weekly basis. And now so are Napoli. More of that coming up later. But we're going to leave Brighton there. We're going to very, very quickly talk about the European race elsewhere as we go Liverpool against Villa in what was actually a pretty thrilling game. 1-1. I just wanted to say, Ramsey, Emery is getting hell of performances out of Ramsey. So I was looking at his stats. He's now got 6 goals and 4 assists, I think, since, let me find it. 5 goals and 3 assists since Emery took over, and he's been an ever-present pretty much. I'm just always impressed by how his runs into space, like how he scored it. This game was like a late run at the far post. His finishing and the reading of the game are unbelievable. And two other players that Emery has massively improved, Konza and Mings, were absolute walls at the back. Like, I don't know if you saw the performance, but I thought we've laughed at Mings a little bit. But when he's on form, he is a bloody good centre back.
Yeah, and that's probably the reason why Southgate kind of trusted him for such a long time in that England setup, because he knows there's a performance in him. But the other player that I want to call out is Douglas Luiz as well. I think the way that he's playing right now, I mean, he could easily just go into any of those top 4 clubs right now and he'd just slot into their midfields right now. It's just incredible how he's not just defensively minded, but so skillful on the ball. Like, even when he's putting in those crosses into the box, they are dangerous. They are whipped in with intent. So just, superlatives for what Emery's doing, but also the players that they've got. I mean, they seem to be really like kind of fighting for the shirt right now and displaying the kind of performances we maybe expected at the beginning of the season with Villa, because you saw what kind of squad that Steven Gerrard had assembled. Unfortunately, it never really kind of came to fruition because we know Steven Gerrard doesn't have any tactics. But yeah, the fact that, Unai Emery's got the best out of this squad and he's frustrating Klopp. Look, Klopp, you could see by his remarks at the end of the match, it was quite funny actually, just saying, "What was this? Like, what was this football?"
I fucking love Klopp, honestly. I love him.
He got properly rattled. So clearly that's what you have to do against Klopp. It's just to wind him up, make sure there's a lot of added time. I mean, you would have loved it at Wickham because the amount of added time we get down there is quite special as well, to be fair. But yeah, no, fair play. Watkins seems a bit hot and cold at the moment, it has to be said as well.
Mr. Penalty, it's a little bit of a worry that he's been in crazy form recently. I just think it's a bit of a blip in it. But I think Liverpool put on enough pressure that I think they probably deserved a point overall. Yes, I think they really were pushing it. Villa just defended so well. But I think Liverpool probably got what they deserved. We do have to very quickly as well say farewell to Bobby Firmino. His last game at Anfield, beyond the memories of him scoring against Arsenal every time he played against us, so I'm glad he's never going to be against us again. Just piss off, will you? But a beautiful, beautiful player to watch. All the no-look passes and no-look finishes. I was going to say a cult hero at Liverpool, but I don't think he is a cult hero. He's just a legend. I think he's just a club legend. I
don't know. We'll see. We'll see in years to come. But I do get the feeling that certain Liverpool fans do think he's been amazing in terms of beyond what he's done. But we'll see. I think it's one of those players that you won't miss until maybe the season after, where you start going, he would have done that. Basically, and I'm quite curious, where does he end up now? Because he hasn't said where he's going, right?
So it's kind of weird, isn't it?
There's not been any clubs linked with him, so it feels like he could do it in the Premier League. But Serie A.
Someone in Serie A is going to come in for him. Inter? Get Bobby Firmino at Inter. That would be a classic Inter signing on a free, but on 120 grand a week. That would be a classic Inter signing.
We will speculate about another player, but we'll talk about that in the Serie A section.
You heard it here first, guys. Inter are getting Firmino in the summer. There we go. You heard it here first. Nice. We're going to move to the bottom of the Premier League. I realise we're overrunning a little bit, but we do need to talk about. We didn't even get to talk about Spurs. Bloody hell. We're going to go to the bottom of the league as breaking news. Leeds are absolutely atrocious. Jesus Christ, that was bad. That was so bad. I felt
Apart
so
from
sorry.
That first 5 minutes. 5 minutes, they were quite decent. And then they kind of just leggy, just chasing shadows. And it was just...
I saw a Leeds tweet, which was fucking brilliant. It was like, at least we're not overtrained anymore. We don't have to worry about that. That was fucking brilliant. Such a good tweet. I felt sorry for Ayling at one point. I didn't know if he was having the worst game in history or if he was just doing everything on his own, because he was blocking stuff and he was getting in the way, but he was constantly out of position. I was like, mate, just fucking... it was a rough watch for Leeds fans. I did feel sorry for him. But they did have a good start. Rodrigo scored an absolute banger. And I thought, okay, here we go. Right, heads on. And then West Ham just absolutely strolled it at the end. Declan Rice getting a goal at his last performance at the London Stadium.
We'll see.
A nice little finish as well. And then by the end of it, Bowen, that build-up between Ings and Bowen was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I think Ings is a really good option up top there. He seems to bring in Bowen and Paquetá really well.
Yes.
And Fornals as well, actually. But yeah, it was so comfortable for West Ham, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you've missed the third goal as well, because that's Paquetá doing some incredible skill on that byline and then pulling it back for Lanzini to basically tap in. Yeah, it was just one of those. Paquetá is becoming one of my favorite players at the moment.
To watch, honestly, he's a pleasure.
Incredible.
To watch.
Absolutely incredible. But yeah, fair play to West Ham. Great performance and gives them confidence going forward. Obviously, Europa Conference League final, which hopefully we will have something lined up for you guys. But more importantly, yeah, Leeds look atrocious. And I think, Rory, I'm going to stick my neck and say, I think they're going down. I think they're going down.
I think their only hope is that they've got Spurs. I think that's their only hope, because frig me, it was like a morgue at the Tottenham Stadium. Like, we're not going to go into it as much as I really want to go into it. It was fucking atrocious. So I do think that Leeds, that's their only positive thing, is that they've got Tottenham.
They've got Spurs, yeah.
And that it could just, if any team is going to allow you to slap them 5-0, it might be Spurs.
It's probably Spurs, yeah.
Yeah. But elsewhere at the bottom, Everton in the 99th minute,
something stupid like that.
Yerry Mina getting a goal to make it 1-1 in a game that Everton dominated in general. I think they were the better side. They offered a bit more of a threat than Wolves, but is that the goal that keeps them up?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I don't want to kind of say yes, it is. But also, I get this feeling that it might be one of those that they'll concede and then they'll go into relegation zone and then they might find themselves back up by the end of the 90 minutes. I don't know. But it's just hard to say because you've got Leicester as well.
I'm just looking at the stats. I was like, I'll check how Leicester are getting on. Right. Yeah. It's 0-0, but the statistics... Jesus Christ. 16 shots for Newcastle, 2 on target, 84% possession, 453 passes. Leicester, 0 shots on target, 16% possession, 94 passes, 43% pass accuracy. Jesus H. Christ, that is atrocious. So maybe Everton do still have a shout. If Leicester don't win today, are they down?
Because it was 3 points off, weren't they? I think as it currently.
They're 2 points if they get. So if they lose, they're 3 points behind Everton. So they'd have to win by 6 goals in the last game of the season.
Yeah, big ask.
Yeah, probably not. Is it?
No.
Damn. Yeah. Well, Everton, Yerry Mina could have secured you safety, but we will see what happens in the last game of the season. Who do Everton have last? We should know.
Bournemouth.
Boom. That is a rough one.
And then Leicester are at home to West Ham. So again, West Ham might rotate their squad, might rest a few players. It's so tight to ask.
No matter what happens, there's a massive club going down, basically.
Yes.
Like, there's a gigantic club going down. But guys, we're going to leave the Premier League there for now, I think. I really am gutted we didn't get to talk about Spurs. But we're going to go to Serie A and we're going to do our calcio right after this. Buonasera, buongiorno, come stai? Welcome to the Anglo-Italian Serie A part. That was great. We are going to start. Where are we starting in Italy, Adam?
Should we start off by talking about the relegation battle in Italy as well? We might as well. We finished it off in the Premier League. We'll start off in Serie A. So yes, Rory, we saw on Sunday the big game that was Lecce versus Spezia. Finished 0-0. I think the highlight for me, I don't know about you, but it was the commentator saying this was after Onzolo had a chance on goal, and he said the first shot on target, and it was like, was he being sarcastic? Like, it was just amazing, absolutely amazing that he actually said that. It was a terrible match.
I couldn't have been much more wrong, really. I couldn't have been much more wrong. I said, oh, there'll be goals. They'll both be fighting for it. Jesus Christ, that was dull. It was proper dull. I apologize if you watched that because of me, honestly.
Please do not get any mortgage advice from us, Lee, in future. But yeah, it was a terrible match. So it doesn't really help either side, though, Rory. That's the thing, because maybe the only blessing was Hella Verona losing 3-1 to Atalanta. Who, again, we thought maybe Atalanta might throw it, but they had Rasmus Højlund back as well. So he played a part. He scored a fantastic goal on the volley, and as did Zappacosta. And then obviously,
great finish.
Pasalic just chasing down the goalkeeper. He tries to be clever and loses the ball to Pasalic, who just taps it into the net. So this, despite Hellas Verona taking the early lead as well. So disappointing for Hellas, and it does feel like they've got a big ask, because when you're looking at those fixtures now, Rory, I don't know which way it's going to go, but I feel like Hellas Verona have the tougher ask.
Empoli at home is a tricky one, because as we're seeing at the moment, Empoli are currently beating Juve 3-0 now. Jesus Christ. And still Marin doesn't score anyway. They are 3-0. They're 3-0 up. So that could be a tricky one for Verona. And then, as you said, their last game of the season is Milan away. They've given themselves a mountain to climb. It felt like they were getting themselves out of it, but that Atalanta game, it kind of felt a bit like West Ham Leeds, not just because the score was the same, but that early promise, and then you concede one, and then the collapse. And then there was just very little offered afterwards. And I think they've just not got that. Obviously, with relegation teams, they very rarely have the ability to change the tide of a game. That's why they are where they are. But they just weren't able to, once Atalanta got that first one, they weren't able to try and push back and go again. There's still a lot of quality in that Verona squad, I think. There's some good players in that squad. I just think the start to the season and then the managerial change, like they changed the manager halfway through and stuff, I think it had a bit of a boost, but it's just been a bit like they've been fighting the tide the entire season, really. But yeah, I imagine it will be them, to be fair. And both Spezia and Lecce will be relieved by that, I think. Because, Cremonese went down this weekend, right? So it looks like Spezia and Lecce should be out of it now. I think they're now 3 points, 2 games. I think Lecce can just get over the line. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say on the balance of where I expect the results to go, if that makes sense. I think when you look at Lecce, they've got Monza, haven't they, in the next game. And then the last game of the season, they are at home to Bologna. So it feels like they should get 4 points. I don't know about you, but that feels like 4 points on the board. Probably too easy for me to say that. But yeah, Spezia home to Torino before they go away to Roma. And then, as we've speculated, Hellas Verona, maybe easy-ish tie against Empoli, but we can see they're winning 3-0 against Juventus. And then they've got to go away to Milan, who, we talked about it previously, where Milan obviously might need that win just to secure the 4th place spot right now. And it's going to be a battle between them and Atalanta as it currently stands. I mean, Roma aren't out of the shout either, to be fair. I'm saying that quite casually. But I'm looking at Atalanta. They've obviously got to take on Inter in the next game, and that's at Inter at San Siro, and then at home to Monza. So again, it's not going to be a straightforward game.
That's 2 tricky games. Like Monza just keep winning. They won again this weekend. Like they are a bloody tough side, and that's the one that I think for Lecce, because Lecce have got them coming up, right? I can't keep all these. That's the one for Lecce where I think Monza away is that's a loss straight away for a team like Lecce. I think Monza have been so great this season on such a good run of form, so I think Lecce have to be targeting that Bologna game at home, because we've seen, as much as Bologna have gone out and slapped Cremonese 5-1 this weekend, I've got so much bitterness towards Serie A this weekend. I left all my Bologna players on the bench, and I'm going to lose the title. But anyway, as much as Bologna have gone out and slapped someone, they will then just get battered 4-0 the next weekend. So I think that's the game that Lecce needs to target and be like, right, last game of the season, we just get something. Just take something from that game, and then we'll be fine. Because if they get 1 point over the next 2, I think they're fine.
Yeah, I think so. When you look at the fixtures, the one thing that I want to also kind of spin it is it's going to be interesting Roma's position as well, because they've obviously got the Europa League, they've also got to take on Fiorentina, who might be coming off the back of Coppa Italia. So it could be very interesting to see how that plays out as well, because, yeah, it depends on whether the Viola are very confident after whatever happens on Wednesday night against Inter. And do they give it a damn? Do they rest some players ahead of that West Ham game? And then, yeah, going into that final game, needing potentially a win against Spezia. So, it could be quite spiky, right? That last day of the season.
There's still a lot to play for. I feel like we've been quite lucky, despite the fact that the title's been done for a while.
Yeah,
there is so much. Everyone else is so close. Like if you look at 7th to 2nd are separated by 9 points. Like that's pretty mad. Like, and then you've got the bottom, however many separated by 2 points. Like it is. Both ends are pretty exciting, so I feel like there's plenty of drama. Salernitana have managed to pretty much pull themselves out of it. Legends. I think they are statistically safe now, but they managed to pull themselves out of it. But yeah, I think that again. I apologize if you watched Lecce Spezia. I just need to apologize again because it was absolutely awful. But elsewhere in Serie A, should we go back up towards the top of the table?
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm going to take us to the red and black side of Milan first, as Milan absolutely get back on the horse. 5-1 win. Now, if I tell you this is why I'm so angry at Fantacalcio, I was playing bottom of the table. He had in his team Giroud and Brahim Diaz.
Okay, yeah.
Now I've left 4 goals on my bench this weekend. I've left Matic, Ferguson, Orsolini, and Barrow on my bench. Well, not Barrow, someone else. I can't remember. Someone else, some other prick who scored. So I was really, really, really angry at this Milan performance. But Brahim Diaz has now, I think he's had an unbelievable season. His numbers, now I bookmarked one of this, and I'm going to give the account a shout out because it's pretty mad. At Milan Zach 6, he now has 17 goals and assists this season. And he's 20 years old.
That's mental. I thought he was older than that.
No, wait. Oh, no, he signed for 20 million. Sorry, how old is he? But regardless, he has had an incredible, incredible season. It's gone a little bit under the radar, and I know it's against Sampdoria, but it was very, very impressive, right?
I thought he was impressive in this match in particular, yeah.
And I think,
generally in terms of his season, it hasn't been too bad. I felt like he's definitely improved from last season. I just feel like he's not being consistent enough in terms of his game contribution. So again, Sampdoria, obviously we know they've been already relegated. I think it was interesting. For me, what stood out was Giroud's hat-trick, because when I looked at his record as well, like he hasn't scored in over a month. He hasn't scored in over a month, so that was some big slog for him. So for him to get this is probably a lot of confidence. It's a shame this game didn't happen a few weeks ago, because I think going into that Champions League semi-final side, I think that would have been a different game completely. But also have to just say kudos to Zanoli. The way he set up that equaliser for Quagliarella. I mean, that take as well for the man that's likely to retire at the end of the season, right? So
finally, 18 seasons in a row he scored in the Premier League, in the Serie A now. 18.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Insane. Absolutely, I was so happy to see him get a goal. I was just like, yes, that's it. It's all been worth it because Quagliarella scored a goal.
Scored his goal.
We needed that. We just needed that at the end. That Giroud hat trick. It wasn't pretty, was it? It definitely wasn't pretty.
It was quite rough, some of them, to be fair. I don't know what he was doing for the third one. It was kind of behind him, but he was kind of flicking it in, wasn't he? It's just so
It felt
weird.
like he was like manhandling the defender as well. It felt like a really, he wanted that goal. He wanted the hat trick.
He said he was desperate, wasn't he?
It's what I've said about Giroud. He goes on these mad slumps. Ask any Arsenal fan. When we were going for the league against Leicester, he just decided to stop scoring. For fuck's sake. So he does go on these dips where he just doesn't score, and then he'll score beauty after beauty after beauty for a run again. So I think, he's just had a very bad time drought again. But huge win for Milan. They needed this so much. Yes, I think if they drop points to Sampdoria, who have been the worst team in the league this year at home, I think it would have been maybe purely wouldn't have seen the season out. It would have just been
it would have been sacks.
Yeah. So I think it was a huge win. Getting those 5 goals just gives you that bit of a boost going into the last game. It puts pressure on Inter, who are away to Napoli and do have a rough game coming. And it puts Milan back in contention with Europe now.
Yeah.
And they're in 4th on 64 points, 3 points ahead of Atalanta. Like, that is a monumental win for Milan. It's honestly huge, because the season could have really petered out. And we said it on the previous show, they have to be careful that it doesn't. They have to be really careful it doesn't. So, yeah, big result for the Rossoneri. But on the other side of the city, Inter took the trip to Naples. And it was pretty rough watching for Inter, I think. From what I saw, the Inter fans really wanted Gagliardini off the pitch. And even Osimhen looked gutted when he got sent off. I don't know if you've seen the picture, Osimhen like head in his hands. Like,
we got it for the promo of this. It was
we need this guy. We need this guy.
Funny.
Absolute disaster class from him. He could have been sent off about 3 or 4 times as well, I think. Like, he threw himself into a few tackles, which were asking for trouble. Do you think that's was it the turning point of the game? Do you think it was fairly even at that point?
I think it was still even thereafter, but it probably didn't help that he kind of was sent off. I think if he was taken off, perhaps by Inzaghi, replaced by one of the other options on the bench, I'm sure it would have given like Inter a chance. I think they weren't out of this, and I think Napoli have been really poor of late since they've won that kind of obviously Scudetto. They've not been the usual selves. Well, I'm sure we're going to speculate about it in a minute, but yeah, there seems to be a lot of things behind the scenes, a lot of speculation on certain players, whether they'll still be there. They don't seem as coherent as they were at the beginning of the season, unfortunately. And it's just a shame it's kind of come to this natural end, if that makes sense. It feels like they're just waiting for the seasons now to just boil over now and just finish it off, because it feels like all of that hysteria and hype around this squad has now just gone by the wayside. But the only good thing I'd say is Di Lorenzo's goal was magnificent, was incredible. You know,
and Anguissa's the spin for Anguissa in the finish was unbelievable as well,
because that was quite tight, because you're talking 70th minute before like Zielinski kind of gets the ball through to Anguissa and he just turns and manages to smash it past Onana. But even the last goal, Giovanni Simeone, like with Politano just exchanging it, you know, that was literally like the 5th minute of injury time at the end. So it was just finishing, putting the final nail in the coffin for Inter. So I don't think there's anything to be glum about for Inter, but it's just more...
just one of those days.
One of those days. And better quality on the pitch. You see a different result, I think. So...
I did want to give a shout out to Lukaku, though. He has now got 6 goals in his last 5 Serie A appearances. 6 goals and 3 assists. Like, he's coming up big at the end of this season. And I think if anything happens for Inter in this final, he's gonna have a say in it. Like, I just feel like he's really hitting his form at the minute. So it's good to see him get his goal, even if it was ultimately a consolation. For Napoli, we've been talking about how this is a real opportunity. This is a chance for them to seize power and seize control of Serie A and build something and build around these exciting young players like Farah and Osimhen and get a bit of excitement. No. It's all fallen apart and the season hasn't even ended. Honestly, I'm going down. I think I've said it, but I'm going down to Naples at the end of the month, and I'm already thinking it's going to be a morgue. It's not going to be a party.
It's not going to be the same.
We timed it wrong. We've missed it already. So if you've not seen Spalletti versus De Laurentiis. So I said it before, De Laurentiis is afraid of not being the main character. He needs to be the center of attention. And what has he done? So it seems that Spalletti received an automated email to tell him that his contract had been extended by a year. So they triggered the automatic extension. Now, beyond doing this without talking to someone being a dick move, what is also the issue is that now Spalletti would have to quit. And in his contract is if he quits, there's a non-compete clause for a season so that he can't take a job without Napoli's say-so. Now, I don't know if this is just in Italy or if it's Europe or worldwide, but it means that basically Spalletti would be forced unemployed for a year at least, or he just stays at Napoli.
Yeah.
So it feels like De De Laurentiis in not wanting to have a conversation, because I think if he'd have sat down and said to Spalletti, "We want to trigger your extension," he might have said, "No, I want more money," but I don't think he would have turned around and said, "No, I'm leaving."
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been said. So maybe De Laurentiis is just being a prick and trying to save money and thinking, I'll just get him anyway and just save a bit of cash. But now Spalletti has come out, and we know what type of person Spalletti is. He seems like a very honourable, polite gentleman who plays by the rules and, does everything properly. He's now said, if I can't give this city everything it deserves and I don't want to be here, like, my mind has been made up. And he hasn't said what his decision is. He's just said his mind has been made up, which is very, very good management, I suppose. Or is it? Does it just leave more? Like, do you think if he turns around to the players and goes, right, I'm leaving, they're like, right, boss, 2 last games, we're going to like go out on our shields? Or do you think this confusion just makes it worse?
I think the whole way that De Laurentiis has managed this has been poorly done. And it just makes it more of a dickish move towards the end of the season, what should have been a nice moment for not just obviously Spalletti, but also the whole club and everyone involved. So especially the context that I got was also that Spalletti wanted to discuss about transfer targets, how they're going to evolve this team and etc. But it feels like he's not going to have a say in that regardless. De Laurentiis is his own agenda, right? So he knows he's got some prized assets right now. Min-jae, Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia are going to be the key ones. And, probably Zielinski is going to be another one because...
And Guiso is going to have a lot of people looking at him.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be a lot of players moving on, I suspect. And that's going to just create this turmoil again where this club, they reach those heights, they got the Scudetto, and then that squad gets depleted, gets replaced by maybe not so good quality players, perhaps going forward. And then Spalletti is going to be either that man to kind of drag it and maybe just not care until his contract ends, or he's forced out by De Laurentiis. So I just, it's interesting because De Laurentiis is also rumored to have been looking at other coaches already. So he's already looked at, as you mentioned earlier, De Zerbi was one of them. I think Conte's been linked with. Jurgen Klopp was a classic one.
Dream on.
Yeah. Rafael Benitez was another one. He was contemplating bringing him back to Naples. I mean,
he wants a yes man, doesn't he? He wants a yes man. That's what he wants. And the problem is as well for Napoli, it's not only the fact that their manager's now leaving. It looks like they're losing their sporting director to Juve.
Yes, yeah.
So the guy who's been there for 8 years, I want to get his name right, Giuntoli, I think the name is.
Yeah, something like that.
It looks like he's going to be Giuntoli. Yeah, it seems that he's moving on to Juve after 8 years in charge. Obviously, they need to replace Paratici. So exactly. Who better than the person who's just won the Scudetto and built a club from the ground up, basically. Depressing times for Napoli. They couldn't even let him have enjoy the summer. They couldn't even let him just enjoy the summer. It just feels so... Honestly, this weekend in Napoli now, I'm just like, it's going to be proper shit now. Everyone's just going to be really pissed off. Everyone's going to be really angry and throwing shit at the stadium.
Throwing scooters at each other, basically, weren't they?
But Scudetto, guys, nobody cares anymore. It just seems it's a really sad way for this to end. And I think this is when people ask me why do Napoli fans not like De Laurentiis despite everything, it's because of this. Yeah. It's because of this. It's just... He's absolutely ruined what could have been an incredible summer for them of just basking in glory and Spalletti building. And it just seems like a really shit way for it to end. Because we knew that there was going to have to be departures. We're not stupid. Napoli fans aren't stupid. They know that Osimhen's going to go. They know that Min-jae's probably going to go. But there could have still been this but don't worry, we're going to replace him. We're still building something. Now it's we're starting from square one again. With a manager who's probably, I don't know, De Zerbi isn't leaving Brighton. Klopp not isn't leaving Liverpool. Who else do you go out and get? Ancelotti again? Who are you waiting to bring in? I don't think there's anyone there at the moment who's better than Spalletti for Napoli.
No, I mean,
realistically.
Like I say, it would have been Conte's one option, but I don't think Conte would join that
in the
club.
south. I can't see him in the south of Italy, honestly. Not exactly. In Naples. Not in Naples.
No, of course not. But then you think about the qualities of Italian coaches. Would De Laurentiis go to Udinese for Sutil, or perhaps, for example, Palladino and what he's done at Monza? I mean, These are the probably type of player or coaches that he would go and try and entice, but I can't see it happening. Can't see those coaches going, do you know what? Napoli is a good option. Yes, it's probably a good career progression in that sense. It's a bigger club, right? But I think the first moment that it all goes tits up, they'll be the first people out of the door as well. So, yeah, I can't see
Yeah,
that.
I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I still think if Napoli knock on Fiorentina's door and say we want Italiano says yes because it's Napoli. I still think
Yeah.
there's a thing,
And he looks like Spalletti as well, right?
and he loves it. Yeah, you won't even know it's not him. You just squint, and it's still him. Like, just grow a little beard, mate, and you'll be fine. Like, I think like there's still a thing about it being. I think they could poach another manager from Serie A. I don't think they go in abroad and get in. Like, when I saw that Jurgen Klopp thing, I laughed out loud. I was like, who the fuck? What is he on, that bloke? It's not happening. But yeah, sorry, Napoli fans, a bit of a shit way. Even though you won 3-1, great to get back to winning ways. For the first time in their history, we'll finish on a bright note. For the first time in their history, Napoli have beaten all of the 19 other teams in a Serie A season. Incredible when you think about it. Unbelievable, beating every other single team.
Absolutely
Undisputed
incredible.
champions, undisputed. And we're still going to look back and enjoy this season in our season review because it has been absolutely glorious. I just wish Osimhen would start scoring again because I've spent a lot of money on you, mate, and you've done absolutely sod all. Yeah, horrific. Elsewhere, instead.
I was going to say, should we end on a high? Because Empoli are winning 4-1 now against Juventus. And it's full time. It's just gone full time.
4-1. My days. And still, Marin doesn't score. Fanta Calcio is absolutely killing me, honestly. I'm praying for a miracle and it's not happening. It's not happening, is it? Well, that was nice. Juve losing 4-1. Bloody hell, that is incredible. But we do need to go too, because we need to give him his props. Immobile reaches 200. He joins an incredible club since 2004. Only two other players in Serie A have had 200 goal involvements for one club. They are Adam.
Juventus?
No, the players.
Oh, players. Goals. Oh, sorry. Di Natale and Totti.
Exactly. Francesco and Tony Christmas.
Yes.
What an incredible club to join. And of course, Immobile does it through a penalty because in classic Immobile,
debatable penalty as well. I don't know if you saw the dive. It was quite classic.
It was Immobile, a bit of a soft one, wasn't it? I feel like Messina throws his leg out, doesn't he? And he definitely kicks him, but he pulls his leg out as well. Yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know if you remember, but in my school days, we used to take the mick. You remember when the Italians were famed for like kind of diving and making out that they got hurt and doing the actions, rolling over and stuff. That was basically what Immobile did there. Yeah. So it was just clever engineering by Immobile's side of things. But yeah, fair play to the guy. He got an incredible record. And yeah, I don't know how he's gone about it because I can't remember half those goals he scored. I couldn't tell you. Goals. A lot of them have been a lot of tap-ins, haven't they? Or penalties. But yeah,
you have to say, even this year, and he's been injured for 90%.
Yes.
He's got like 17 goals or something, 12, it's like 17 goals, I think,
something
12
like
goals.
Yeah.
He's still hit mad numbers. You're like, yeah, the guy just works. Hey, it just works, except when he's in an Italy shirt. But for Lazio, this was a rough first half for them. I feel like it was really not a great performance. Udinese were kind of coming into it. I thought Udogie had a really, really good game until he was taken off. I was really impressed with Samardzic. Again, another player who's super exciting at Udinese. I thought, okay, Udinese can get something out of this. Second half, Sarri must have given them an absolute bollocking because they came out and they were just a completely different team. I thought Luis Alberto completely ran the game second half, was popping up everywhere with his little through balls and dribbling past players and was really hoping he'd get a hat trick, but he didn't, the prick. And then but I thought he really, really absolutely ran the game. And I was really impressed with Lazio second half. They were playing beautiful stuff, right?
They were absolutely pinging about, and you could sense that there was something going to happen. And luckily, they managed to get that penalty. But yeah, even thereafter, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic is doing his little pivots. He's running onto things. So again, it's something to be excited for if you're a Lazio fan. But The one bit that I wanted to pull out of, in addition to Immobile, was the contract talks with Luis Alberto. It feels like he's going to reject it and potentially move on. It's been rumored to another Serie A club. So it wouldn't surprise me, Rory.
We're just linking everyone to Inter.
It sounds like an Inter signing, doesn't it? To be fair, free transfer, just give him some wages, he'll be fine. Plays guaranteed in Champions League, right? So I wouldn't surprise me. Like, he'd probably replace Mkhitaryan, right? So
that's not a bad replacement, to be fair.
Could see that, but then again,
Inter
I could see
having
him
a big summer, guys.
I could see him at Milan. I could see him at the Rossoneri as well. That would be a fascinating signing as well. So
that's
very good.
That's very, very true. But it does feel like Sarri's still. I'm intrigued to see Lazio, third season Lazio under Sarri. I'm intrigued to see what they do this summer. And I think we've seen Sarri slowly building in the progress and kind of the more signs of Sarri ball and the kind of the incredible performances against like their rivals and some big wins and some games where they scored quite a few goals and you're like, oh wow, this is like, exactly. And just that third season, it should really start kicking on. So I think if they get a few signings in the summer, I'd still be looking at another striker, maybe improving the defense a little bit. I think Romagnoli's been really good under Sarri, but I still never quite trust him. I still never quite trust him. I think you could still do some a bit more solidly at the back. Maybe someone to help Milinkovic-Savic in midfield, a bit more strength in midfield. Yeah. But I think there are a few additions just away from being a real force. So it'll be interesting to see who Sarri is able to bring in. We know Latito doesn't like spending money, so he's going to have to do it on the sly. But I think next season we could really see Lazio challenging because they play some beautiful stuff on their day. And it's, they showed signs of it this time. Udinese, classic Udinese, they had nothing really to play for. They showed a bit of fight. They had moments of quality, but ultimately just kind of faded away in the game. I never really felt like, even at 1-0 towards the end, it never really felt like they were going to score. It was just more Lazio kind of pushing, I think. It didn't really feel like Udinese were capable of doing much. So I think Sottil's done an incredible job there. Really had a very good season for them. But another team where players could be disappearing this summer. I don't expect Samardzic and Beto to both be there next year. I think one or both of them are going to go. Good stuff for Lazio. So in Serie A, that kind of leaves it all pretty tight at the top. We've got Lazio second on 68 points, Inter third on 66, Milan fourth on 64, Atalanta fifth on 61, and Roma sixth on 60. Juve seventh on 59 with the points deduction. We need to talk about the points deduction. So I don't know what's happened here. It looks like Serie A or the FIGC have just waited to see exactly how many points will kick Juve out of the Champions League.
Yes.
But if Juve win their next two games, they can still make the Champions League. But UEFA have banned them from European competition anyway.
Yeah, so it feels like they've got everything thrown at them anyway, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Is this FIGC like wimping out of a decision and being like, oh, we can just look like we're doing something, but actually they're banned anyway, and we don't actually have to punish them? Or is this, as Juve fans are going to say, FIGC targeting Juve and saying, we're punishing only you for this? Like, which side of that are you falling on? Because I'm so confused as to what's going on.
I'm still of the opinion that there should have been harsher repercussions for Juventus, because we're not just talking about like a subtle kind of cheating as we're used to with Juventus. This is kind of a blatant and obvious kind of piece. And the fact that you've got these directors all being suspended for a minimum of 2 years kind of tells you what you need to know about this story. So yeah, it feels like they're wimping out, but they're dishing out a proportionate ban, which maybe... I don't know how you feel, if you feel this is the way, but I've read the statement from Juventus, which feels like they're reading the penalty to understand if it's appealable, to understand. Yeah. And do you remember the first kind of 15 points deduction was applied, then taken off them? Well, I feel like this was deliberately done at 10 points just to make sure it wasn't harsh enough so that it could appeal against it. because it still leaves them with the opportunity to do whatever they need to.
Okay, then it's your fault you didn't qualify, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's one of those decisions, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. They should have just given them 30 points deduction, get them relegated out of Serie B or Serie A, and let them go into Serie B again, because unfortunately, they seem to be cheats and they prosper from that. So they shouldn't be in that position. But it does. Let's put it this way: there is some wider issues, because it's not just Juve, right? There's a few other clubs that need to be careful.
And this is what we need to be like. I know we don't like Juve on this show, but we do need to be relatively level-headed with it and level-handed with it. I think there are a lot of other clubs involved. Napoli are involved. I think to a lesser extent, but Roma are involved. I think Milan are involved. I think you could probably list every team in Serie A and say they're involved at this point. But as always, Juve are the biggest culprits of it. I think, I think that this isn't the only punishment though. Like, there's punishments coming next season. And I think ahead of next season, we might see the big punishments. We might see Juve starting in Serie B, to be honest, because I think it needs to be heavy-handed. It just needs to be heavy-handed because, especially, I don't know, if every club's doing it, you can't relegate everyone, can you? Do you just replace Serie A with Serie B and say, right, start again? But I feel like if you've got the biggest culprit and they are the biggest club in Italy and they are the ones that consistently cheat, you do just have to make an example of them. And for Juve fans, you just have to take your medicine. I'm sorry, but you're being made an example of, because that's what your club did. That's what they've done. So, and as you said, if your directors are up in criminal court, not like CAS, like criminal court, it means that something really, really was going on. So, unlucky Juve, I suppose. You didn't help yourself by losing 4-1 to Empoli tonight, I'll be honest. So it's partly your own fault. You are still a little bit shit. And it seems like Vlahovic is already off. His agent is making every noise now to get him out of that club. He's been linked to United. He's been linked to Chelsea. He's been linked to Arsenal. They're praying for that Premier League money. So we'll see what happens there. But guys, we do, very quickly before we go, need to preview. We've got a big game midweek. We've got a very big game midweek. Coppa Italia final. Inter taking on Fiorentina. Both these managers leading their teams to 2 cup finals. How do you see this one going? I think it could be a really, really entertaining game.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's different, isn't it, Rory, to see Viola there as well, like kind of the form that they've been displaying of late. I feel this could be a bit more of an interesting game than what Inter have been used to in the last few years. But I still expect, with the kind of quality that Inter have, not only on the first 11, but also to bring off the bench, I suspect they've got more than what Fiorentina have to offer. Personally, that's my way of thinking. But if Inter have a bad day and Fiorentina are on it, then you never know. We could see Luka Jovic scoring in the final. But no, seriously, it's probably going to be someone else, isn't it, to be honest? But it would be funny if Biraghi, the left back, was to score, because he's obviously ex-Inter. So
it could be. There's a bit of narrative there. Well, the first game this season where these two faced off was in Fiorentina. It was 4-3 to Inter. Mkhitaryan getting a 95th minute winner after Jovic, the very man, put Fiorentina level in the 90th minute. They did manage to throw it away, and Inter won 4-3. And then the last game in Milan, Fiorentina won 1-0 with the Bonaventura goal. That was only back in April, so it wasn't that long ago when Inter were going through that terrible run of form. Everyone was really pissed off that Bonaventura got that header to secure the win. So I feel like it's a very, very even game. This could go either way. And I think Fiorentina, this is their, the first chance to make history. The first chance to start an incredible season. I think if they win one final, then they go into that second final going like, this is what we do. Let's go. Whereas if they lose this final, maybe psychologically it feeds into it a bit, puts a bit more pressure on it. I don't know. It'll be a really interesting one, but I'm going to say Lukaku scores.
Yeah. Either that or Barella.
It feels that way. And in the Premier League, we do have a couple of matches.
There is,
We've got Man City are finally playing their game in hand, so that's nice. We'll be able to see if they actually take advantage of Arsenal. Man City are playing again away to Brighton on Wednesday night. And Man United Chelsea. Now, Man United still need a win here to make sure that they can properly secure Champions League football. They're currently 3 points ahead of Liverpool. If they win this, they've guaranteed themselves Champions League. Chelsea are now, how long is it since they lost? Since they won? Okay, 2. That's not too bad. How do you see this one going at Old Trafford? This is going to be another United win, Chelsea loss, right?
I'm expecting Man United to win this. And if they don't, then they've only got themselves to blame, because then it could be really on, right? It could be really, really on. Just trying to work out who Liverpool's last game is against, and it's against Southampton. So it's Southampton they've got to play. So, imagine if it does go to the last day of the season. I can't see it personally, though, now.
No, I can't see it.
Well, as much as I'd love it, just purely to wind up Andy, that'll be quite funny.
I do feel like, I need to check this, though. I do feel like United-Chelsea games are always horrifically shit, though. I feel like the last few have all been 0-0s. Oh, no, 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, 0-0, 0-0. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so the last 5 have been draws. Maybe don't stay up to watch this one.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Yeah, so obviously Liverpool are hoping Chelsea win, right? So just give them a chance. Yeah, I can't see it happening. I
can't see it myself.
It'll be a draw, won't it? It'll be a draw, but that'll be enough. That'll be enough. So. Yeah.
I cannot see it. Well, guys, we are finished for today. I think we've covered everything. I did want to do some under-20 World Cup chat, but I think we've run out of time. It just very quickly, Casadei is absolutely unbelievable for Italy. Chelsea have got a hell of a player there. And Scully, Arsenal youth product, scored an absolute banger for England as well. If you've not seen it, search that one out. Unbelievable goal. Skelly, not Scully. Sorry, Skelly. So keep an eye on the under-20 World Cup, because 2 very decent teams there. Adam, anything to say before we go?
No, but just to echo, the Italians also had a fantastic result against the Brazilian under-20s recently. Baldanzi, Pafundi also performing quite well, so keep an eye on those 2. And Poland's under-17s, I've probably tweeted it a few weeks ago, but they've been playing mesmeric football as well. The bang against the Republic of Ireland was just incredible. So
unbelievable.
Please promote them into the first 11. That's why Mikniewicz was coach, right? He was protecting.
Just get him in his youth coach. He'll beat you out of him quick enough. He'll stop all that fancy stuff. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. As always, if you are watching on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend, etc. You can follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Tell a friend, and we will see you on Friday to discuss Coppa Italia final. Bye, guys.
Ciao, ciao.